All right, my friend, we're recording. So, welcome back to another French Press podcast episode. We have a fantastic guest with us today. Last episode, we had Patrick Karen, the 100-miler racer. And I asked Pat, hey, who's another person who has a great story to pop on the podcast? And so, who we have today is Maurice Lowman out of East Providence. And he is also known as the Marathon Panda. So, Maurice, thanks for being with myself tonight.
Dan, happy Thursday, and happy Thursday, everybody. I'm very excited for the opportunity to chat with you.
Absolutely, man. So Pat sent me over your Instagram. I'm going through it. You're all dressed up for these races, looking super energetic. So let's start at the beginning and then we'll just work our way there, but feel free to kind of take it wherever you want.
Okay, so I was introduced to the running community later in life. I'm 44 years old, coming out of East Providence in Providence, Rhode Island. Been running consistently for 9 years. With, starting off with half marathons, building up to the marathon distance, and now into the ultra marathon distance, with still a huge love and space in my heart for the 26.2 distance. I always like to just kind of shed light on the fact that I'm not fast. I love to, I'm never going to win one of these things. So I've embraced the role as a cheerleader. So to back it up a little bit, like as a youth, I was into youth athletics, the CYO basketball, Pop Warner football, Little League baseball. I did all of that, but I never knew what running was. Track and field wasn't on my radar. And I was never an all-star in any of those other sports. I was kind of like the kid that they threw in for a few plays because his mom was there watching. And it's really cool because I think you had asked me off live about the Panda, and to touch on that, my grandmother, let me stay on track here. My grandmother, when I was a toddler, gave me a panda bear stuffed animal. I was absolutely obsessed with it. Never went anywhere without it. Used to ask my parents for posters and National Geographic books about the panda bear. Fast forward, and she also used to tell me, this is a big piece of the story, she used to tell me that I was going to be a runner. Now, once again, I never grasped this. She just used to compliment me on my big, strong legs, I guess, and tell me that I was going to be a runner one day. And I wasn't grasping it at the time. And even as a teenager and into my early 20s, it wasn't really on my radar. Then running became the go-to exercise when I was doing, like, if I was struggling with self-esteem, if I had a bad night and I wanted to feel better about myself the next morning, I'd throw on some sneakers and some, this was back when I was throwing on cotton jogging pants, I think, and going for a run. And it helped clear my head. It helped build my self-esteem. And I really got really intrigued and interested into how I could get better. Still very, very naive to the running world. Knew nothing about distance running, knew nothing about marathons and qualifications and all of that stuff. And I started with the dream and the goal of running a marathon, okay? Not knowing anything about it. Started to become very, very consistent with the running. And the reason why I became very consistent with the running was because I became serious about my health and my wellness. I had struggled in my mid-20s all the way up until my early 30s with some hardcore alcohol and drug addiction over and over and over again. Why I mentioned that every time I felt like I needed a boost in self-esteem, every time I felt like I needed to brush some dirt off my shoulder, running was my go-to activity. That's what I meant. When I was having some bad nights, whether it was drinking, whether it was drugging, I was like, Maurice, you're better than this. You need to move in a different direction. I used running, but I was never consistent with it because of all of the other things hindering me and my lifestyle. In 2013, 2014 was my first half marathon. And I had been serious about my health and my wellness and my sobriety for a few years at that point. Once I did my first half marathon, the community aspect really drew me in. I can remember a woman at the end of the race showing me how to look up my time by typing in my bib number. Because just to touch on that again, this was all brand new to me. That's why I brought up the fact that I played youth athletics but I had never been in any type of organized sport or event as an adult. So the atmosphere, the high fives, the hey, the great job, that's what got me hooked on it. And so she showed me how to look up my time. She showed me my time. She said, oh my gosh, you rocked it. This is so awesome. And I was instantly hooked. I was like, when can I do this again? Where is the next one? And I'm the guy that went home and was like online, like looking for the next local half marathon. And my attitude was, you're never going to get better at this if you don't keep showing up and keep trying to get better. So I started, reading the magazines and looking online, and I got introduced to the social media community kind of later. And that was a big, big tool for me, because I'm coming from a lifestyle where none of this was on my radar. It's kind of gritty, but I came from a lifestyle where I was a guy that would trade a smartphone for drug money. So to have a device with a platform where people are like, hey, great job. Hey, I'm sober too. Hey, I used to be crazy into, this kind of stuff. And now I'm running. And I was so intrigued and willing to like immerse myself in it. I just kind of went full throttle in my own head. You know what I mean? In my own head, I think I'm going full throttle. And I just signed up for everything that I could afford to get to. The half marathons were just adding up, boom, boom, boom. I had the goal of doing the marathon, which I did. And once I did that distance, the finish line, runner's high, it was something that just really, really hooked me.
Damn. I love the story. I love the overview, man. I was writing some questions down as you were going. So thank you kind of for shedding light on everything. I wanted to take a quick step back, right? So it's crazy. Your grandma gives you a panda, says you're going to be a runner, and you're like, okay, and didn't realize anything till now. But what effect did your grandma have on you growing up? Was it more of her influence or any of the parents there present?
I have a strong corner with awesome parents. My mom's mom is the one that I talk about. I called her Nana. And so when I found that love for running, I was like, this is what my grandmother used to tell me. Like, this is like so kind of crazy to me. Because once again, I can't express to you how naive and unknowledgeable I was about the running world, the running community, the fact that there's all these awesome people that aren't professional athletes that are just, immersed in this community, chasing goals and so forth. And then of course you have the elites, and you have the former Division I athletes, and you have track and field stars, and you have long distance, sponsored runners and all that stuff. The fact that you can be in the same community, that's one of the most exciting parts of the sport. My grandmother would be, so she's not with us anymore, but the memory when I wanted to kind of, be something on social media, I came up with the panda bear for a couple of reasons. I'm proud of my biracial heritage. I'm half black, I'm half white. So is a panda bear. I think I've run enough. I run enough miles now where I'm not as chubby as I used to be, and I'm not saying that in an offensive way. I'm super supportive of the body positive and all of that, and I've been body positive since I've started the sport. And I can't say it enough. The inclusiveness. I'm just a guy who has this silly, nickname, and I wear panda hats to the events, and I yell and scream and tell everybody great job. I can't tell you enough. The inclusiveness in the community is what is like the biggest piece of my fuel to be like, you're not going to stop now. We're talking 70 half marathons, 39 full marathons, quite a few of the longer distances. And I'm very, very grateful that I'm able to chase these things with a bunch of other awesome people. Because I can't say it enough. I'm the guy that walks around saying, hey, guess what? My name's Maurice. I run marathons. And there's a lot of awesome people with a lot of awesome stories.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the whole community aspect is something that resonates with me the most. I'm 5'7", naturally like 195 pounds, and probably about 10 pounds less now, but I got the bodybuilding shape. I've done a bodybuilding show, pandemic hit, and then I'm like, well, gyms are closed. I got to start running or doing something. And then 1 mile turns into 3 turns into 10. And I ran my first ultra a couple
Woo!
months ago. So
Nice.
31 miles,
Yeah,
it's not
that's
a
a big
50.
deal. That's a big deal. High fives and positive vibes. And I love that you said 1 mile turned to 3. And now when you were running 3 miles, you didn't think you were going to be running 31.
No, I thought running a marathon was insane. You know what I mean? And so,
Now you're doing the ultra.
yeah. So, no, it's cool though. And again, the 5K community all the way to the ultra, everyone's super welcoming. I'm sure you've ran a lot more than me. It's like when I was doing my 31 miler, I'm struggling at the last couple 5-6 miles, and people are still running by you and cheering you up. And I had this cool story where I was 3 miles out. I've tripped 3 times over different rocks and different
Wow.
not trees, but the roots, excuse me.
Yes.
And I was like mentally beat. This guy comes up behind me. So he's running the 50-mile race. I'm running the 31. He's like, hey man, I'm going to bring you home. Like, and we can see the finish line at the end. He's like, I'm going to bring you the next 2 or 3 miles here. And then, we crossed, high-fived, and he kind of finished up his 50. And it was just like, we need more people like that, not even in just running because we have them in running, but like just in our lives in general. So it's been awesome.
Absolutely. And that's why I can't say it enough. I truly embrace the role as being a cheerleader, because when I'm yelling and screaming to somebody, awesome job, great work, let's keep it going, don't stop now. It's benefiting me too. It's benefiting me too. It's almost like I'm hyping myself up. And I find so much joy especially like when I love the races where there's a turnaround and you're facing other runners, because I get hyped up with runners at all levels, the ones that are walking, the ones that are super fast and competing at a high level. But when you see those folks, running towards you, and and people say it to me all the time, Maurice, you're wasting a lot of energy, you're yelling, doesn't that take time to recover? And yes, and I have learned, I like to say I've matured in this sport. For example, the 2022 Providence Marathon, I was very dialed in. I had a goal. I had trained for that goal, and I knew I wouldn't hit that goal if I was stopping to take selfies and pass out high fives to every single individual on the course, which is usually what I try to do. So I didn't, and it was the biggest discipline victory for me in my recent running, where I was able to dial in, keep the hype really, really to a 0 to 1 level, where I'm usually the guy that's on 11. And it worked. It worked. I was able to execute and hit the goal and hit a PR. So I see the benefit of the training and the execution. But when you're talking, a local half marathon, a local marathon that I've done several times, I can't say it enough. I have the attitude, and it's not a quitter's never attitude, because I have that positivity attitude, but I know I'm not going to win at the distance. I'm not breaking any speed records. So I enjoy the cheerleading. I enjoy the, making sure every volunteer and staff member hears, great, thank you so much for being out here. And then the people that are walking, the people that are doing their first one, just to cheer them on as much as possible. And it's mutually beneficial for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm sure you get a ton of energy giving it to other folks. So it's awesome. And so would you say too, you locked in for the Providence one recently, and you accomplished your specific PR goal. What was different in training for that as compared to the other ones that you've run?
Training was just more specific towards that pace and that goal. I'm very fortunate. I have a great run coach in my corner, and she's very wise. She's very no frills.
You want to shout her out?
Yes, Coach Lori Mitchner,
Cool.
out of Massachusetts. She's an ultra queen. She wins 100-mile races and all that good stuff. And it was funny because I believe the relationship started via an Instagram message. I had done 4 marathons in 1 month, to be that guy that was like, hey, it's Marathon-tober. I just finished 4 marathons, one every weekend. And she congratulated me and was like, great job. There's not a lot of folks that can say they laced up every single weekend and completed the distance. However, if you're interested in quality, over quantity. And if you ever want to train for a specific pace, execute that pace on race day, then maybe I can be of some assistance. And I just took that as just like there was nothing stopping me from saying an immediate yes, because here's someone that I just look up to as far as being wise and experienced and accomplished in not just the running, but the ultra running as well. I mean, she's a mom, she's a college professor, she's a certified run coach. So to me, it was an awesome opportunity. So I latched on. And then the training, the real training, the 16-week plan, the 16-week plans with the hill work and the speed work and everything, those started to be implemented. So when I did Providence in 22, nothing really changed because I had been introduced to those 16-week plans before.
Interesting. And so when you're prepping for a race, is it more of a, hey, I'll sign up for it, it's like in 2 weeks, or do you really plan it out from like a like 8 to 16 week program?
Well, really cool question. So when I first got into the community, it was just like whatever I could afford to sign up for, and if it was realistic for me to like A, get the time off of work, B, drive there. If it was realistic, I tried to make it happen, and it wasn't based off of, hey, I have 20 weeks to prepare for this. It was like, hey, I get to run a marathon in Connecticut. I've never done that before. Oh, there's another half in Westerly, Rhode Island next week. I've never done that one before. Oh, here's the one in Seekonk that I do every year. I'm not going to miss that one. So I'm just signing up. Now I have more of a, I shouldn't say, I do say I'm more mature with the selection, and I have that what's on your calendar attitude. So for example, the 100 miler was something I never imagined. I had never ran more than 56 miles prior to my 24-hour event, which was training for the 100 miler. So not to get all over the place, but the 100 miler was on my calendar for almost 11 months. So I signed up for it specifically knowing that it was a long-term goal. I'm like, if I can make this happen, that would be absolutely amazing. So having it on the calendar, I knew the training had to increase. I knew the discipline had to increase. Last calendar year was the first time I was ever introduced to strength training. And to touch on that, I faced a, not quite an injury, but like a hamstring aggravation. That kind of, it forced me to sit out a full marathon just because I was trying to be smart and listen to my body. I had ran a half with the hamstring nagging me, showed up to this marathon, did a shakeout run the day before, and just wasn't feeling at all close to 100%, and I said, why don't you be smart, listen to your body, and not run 26 miles. So it was my first DNS. That's what they call them, I think, that did not start. And I'm still 0 for 0 with DNFs, though. We don't have any of those, so I'm happy about that. But the DNS, it made me kind of I was hitting plateaus. I was getting to the point where it took me a lot of effort to run 13 miles at the same pace that I could previously run it at. Because at the end of the day, everybody wants to improve. I say all this stuff about I'm not going to break speed records, but of course you have personal goals and you have areas where you want to improve. And you chase PRs. That's what's so cool about the sport, is that you have your own personal records that you can chase down. And it was I hit some plateaus, sought out some professional help with via physical therapy, and I had an awesome doctor/body coach, Alex. I'll give him a shout out as well. And he said, don't take this the wrong way, brother, but you're just not strong. For somebody that can get up and put their shoes on and run for 4 hours, he's like, that's absolutely awesome. He's like, you're even doing 5, 6, 7, 8 hour events. He said, that's absolutely awesome, but you're not strong in a lot of areas where a runner should be strong. So he had me doing, calf raises and hamstring bridges and split squats and basic stuff that it was so foreign to me that it was a struggle. The balance, the mobility, the stability, it was such a struggle. But I knew the only way to get better was to stick with it. So I found a strength training program that works for me. I stayed super consistent with it. The hamstring aggravation not only went away, and then I also learned about the recovery aspect, the foam rolling, the I got introduced to hot yoga. So there's a lot of pieces that I'm so grateful for that have helped me. I'm not getting any younger, but I have this thing where I say I'm in it for the long haul. I don't want to be, and never to sound offensive, I don't want to be the person that says, I used to run marathons. I ran an ultra one time, and now this happened. So I'm very grateful for my body. I'm very grateful for what it can do, especially someone that overcame that old lifestyle, to be able to treat my body the right way and get out of it what I've been getting out of it. It's so rewarding. It's so cool. Those are the things, the listening to people. I have an attitude that I'm not the smartest, I'm not the most knowledgeable at any of this stuff, I'm not a professional. So I get so much joy in learning from the professional doctors, the coaches, the people that have been doing this for years. And I'm learning. I'm learning and growing. It's exciting.
And when you started finding out that whole hamstring stuff and kind of plateauing, realized you needed to get a little bit stronger, how long ago was that for you? I'm just curious.
Over a year and a half ago, going on
Oh,
2 years.
wow.
Yeah, going on 2 years, and the strength training has been very consistent. The recovery, the foam rolling, the extra stuff that I never ever did before, the extra 5 minutes before, the 15 minutes after a run, the taking a real rest day where I have a run streak that I do a lot of yapping about. And I used to run what they call a lot of junk miles. So for example, if I had 90 minutes before I had to be home and get ready for work, I ran for 90 minutes. If I had 2 hours, I ran for 2 hours, and if I had 60 minutes when I got home, I did another run. And it was a lot of, I think that's what they call it, junk miles, where there was no fitness benefit to these runs. I was just kind of slugging my way through them just to say, hey, I ran 12 miles. Hey, I ran another 6. Hey, I ran another 4. And not taking the rest and the recovery serious. So all of these things have changed considerably over the it's more than a calendar year. It's more like 18 months.
Okay, very cool. It's funny you say junk miles, because I used to do that a lot too. I just felt like, oh, well, I could watch Netflix for 2 hours or I could run for 2 hours. And like having that mindset isn't necessarily the greatest thing all the time, especially with those.
There's other things I could be doing, whether it's stretching, foam rolling, whether it's a yoga class, maybe it's push-ups, or not push-ups, but maybe it's squats, maybe it's mobility drills, maybe it's lunges, things that will get me better. Or maybe it's just a true lay down and watch Netflix because you've been running too much this week.
Right. So another thing too, before you started getting into the running, you talked about kind of the alcohol and the drugs. I won't ask you too much about it, but what was the one point where you're like, this has to kind of stop, and you knew you had to kind of switch stuff around permanently?
I appreciate the question. I'm super vocal about it. It's part of my story. I love actually chatting about it because it helps keep it in front of me. So in 2008, 2009, I had hit some real rock bottoms.
Yep.
Rock bottoms that most adult men and women would learn from the first time around. And we're talking like, some jail time, some time on the streets being homeless, sometimes, and I'll touch on the fact that I have an awesome family behind me, but there was that tough love moment where it was like, you're a great guy, we love you, but you can't stay here type of stuff. And I heard that from my friends as well. Maurice, we love you, you're a great guy, but you can't crash on my couch anymore. So hitting some rock bottoms, it was a constant self-awareness that I knew I needed a better lifestyle. 2009 got real serious about it. Running was the foundation. Unfortunately, I did have a slip up in 2013 and 14, but I got clean and sober again in 2015, and have never looked back. And that's where I'm at now. So ever since March of 2015, never having picked up a drink or a drug, using running and social media and local running/fitness community as my biggest pieces of the foundation.
Very cool. Well, number one, congratulations. That's
Well,
awesome. That's
thank you
amazing.
so much. I appreciate it. And I always like to say the same thing. We all have stories. You know,
Yeah.
I admit that I'm the one running around saying, hey, look at me. I'm clean and sober. I used to be a bad guy. I used to do this. Now I do this. But we all have stories. We're all overcoming something, whether it's, and I'm very vocal about the mental health aspect, where this is a community that if you're struggling with anything, maybe it's depression, maybe it's self-esteem, maybe it's social anxiety, these, you know, being around people that love to do the same thing is like the best medicine.
Yeah, no, I agree. And community, right? And I think, and I'm just kind of inferring, but I think at that moment of your life, it may have felt a little lonely, hence the reason why that community of running feels just that much better. Am I wrong in saying that?
Oh, you're 150% right. You're going from hanging out with yourself and the street life and some real other people that are into that darkness, I like to call it. And
Yeah.
now you're with people that are all that have a joy for life. And that's what I was missing. These people in these communities, and you know, you were bodybuilding and everything, you've seen it. People that are in that type of discipline, they're not doing bad stuff on the weekends. You know what I mean? They're sleeping right, they're eating right, they're showing up to the gym twice a day, they're doing their routine. And that keeps me motivated because I don't want to go back to the old lifestyle. I want to be around these people that are awesome, that are planning trips and planning competitions. And, you know, whether you're rowing or hiking or bodybuilding, it's the same type of zest for self-improvement. And the community, we both keep saying it, it's been a lifesaver for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm actually curious too, did you ever hit a point where you were just running too much? Maybe not obsessive, but you're like, I know this is good for me to kind of keep my mind off some things, but it's getting to be too much. Did you ever run into that?
Yeah, just the kind of how I touched on it, where I call them junk miles. I was just chasing the distance to kind of like show you on the app that I had a 220-mile month or a 230-mile month, which might not sound tremendous to some people that are hitting, 400-mile months. But to me, a guy that was running, 3 miles a week to run 200 miles in a month, I'm thinking like, this is pretty cool. Let me do it again. Let me try to hit 230. Let me try to hit 240 with no real structure. So when the structure came, that's what really helped. Implementing the real rest and the real recovery, that's what really helped. So yes, there was a time where I think I was running too much because there was things I should have been doing instead of going for a run. Most of the time that thing should have been resting probably. But cross training is the other missing ingredient.
Gotcha. Okay, very cool. And another thing too is most of the listeners are somewhat my age, maybe a little bit older, and then I like to say my mom. But most of us
My mom's my number one fan. She shows up with the panda hat on and everything at my
I love
event.
it. I love
Yeah.
it. So but most of the folks who do listen are very busy, and I want to make sure they can always get something out of this too. Not that anything you have said hasn't been able to be taken, but from more of like a lifestyle standpoint, I noticed when I started running a lot and putting a lot of miles in, it takes up a lot of time, right? Like running all those miles, all those hours per day, and then trying to do a full daytime job. Maybe some listeners have kids, dropping them off, blah, 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 blah. Do you have any recommendations or experience with just having a busy schedule and how to prioritize the running or just a goal in general?
Find that's a really cool question. And I've always admired, I'm very fortunate where I'm solo. My two boys are adults right now. So I don't have any young kids at home where I need to, attend to them nonstop and have to, use a treadmill or not go outside for 90 minutes because I only have 20 minutes. So I'm very fortunate in those areas. But I have some friends that live way busier lifestyles than me when it comes to like a longer commute, having to drop kids off at school, having to be at one job in the morning and maybe another job in the evening. So just find what works for you. If you hate running at night, then you got to get up earlier and work it out in the morning. If you don't like running in the morning, then just make sure you can dedicate, if it's not 90 minutes, make it 30 minutes. My whole thing is the consistency, and that's not a brand new thing. But if you're able to build something consistent in your routine, it's just gonna compound. So don't be afraid if you can't do 10 miles when you want to do 10 miles. Because if you can do 30 minutes or 40 minutes, but you can do it multiple times per week, you're going to have that time where the day or the schedule allows for the 90 minutes. I have to touch on the fact I'm very fortunate in my with my job being flexible to let me take time off for events and stuff like that. I can remember I was in some crazy virtual challenge and I told my boss about it, and I said, listen, I gotta take like an extra 30 minutes at lunch because I'm going to get changed. I'm going to go for a run. He's like, you're going to do what? I said, I have to, because if I get home tonight, I still have to run another 6 miles. And it's fun. And you just find different ways to kind of fit it in.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, like I always tell people too, if it matters to you that much, you're going to make it work.
You're going
to, it doesn't have to be running, right? It could be exercising or going on that walk or hanging with your certain partner, whatever brings you joy. If it's that important, you can prioritize it.
I never thought that I would, that's perfectly said, because I never thought that I'd be the guy that was, hitting the alarm at 4:30 in the morning to get to to make sure I'm ready for a 6 a.m. class, and then have time to squeeze in a 40-minute run, and then have time to get to work on time and everything like that. But the discipline, it's just everything carries over. If I'm that disciplined where I can get up every day and go to strength training and get a run in, then if I need to do XYZ at work, I better be able to accomplish XYZ. Do you know what I mean? If I'm so disciplined with my run streak and making sure that I run every single day, and the boss says, you need to do this, this, and this by the end of the day or by the end of the week, there's nothing stopping me from kind of, prioritizing it and making it happen. And running has helped me so much. I was never this motivated and disciplined about any area in my life, including but when I was struggling with the drugs and alcohol. I had some success in my professional life as far as the sales industry and stuff, but I was never disciplined. I was never the guy that was like, okay, 30 more phone calls is going to make a difference, staying an extra hour late or showing up an extra hour early, and banging out, ABC XYZ is going to make a difference. I was never that guy. And now I'm able to take the discipline from the running and the fitness and kind of, carry it over to other areas in life. And you're exactly right. If it's important to you, you will make time for it.
Yeah. And it's so funny too, because I always try and figure out like, what is the bridge from, folks who are unmotivated, or, they'll see an Instagram post, maybe yours, and, oh, I just completed 12 miles at 6 a.m. Right. And then they talk very negatively. Oh, why does he do that? He's crazy, blah, blah, blah. And it's not a coincidence that people such as yourself who love fitness and find it beneficial are always so much in a better mood. Like I've always noticed the negative people I meet in my life are the ones who don't do anything for themselves. And it doesn't have to be fitness related.
You're exactly right, and that's why I tried to touch on the other things. There's people that love tennis and they make sure that they practice, 8 hours every weekend, and that might sound, I'm just throwing a number out there. Yeah. But I have that attitude that when I was doing bad things, when I was, chasing alcohol and drugs, I wasn't like, hey, look at me, look what I just did. So now that I'm doing positive things, as far as health and wellness and fitness, I am that guy that's like, hey, look at me. And I love the fact that people, that bounces off of other people, and there's other people that appreciate it, and there's the right people, the one you said it perfect. The positive people, the ones that are excited about things, are the ones that have something going on.
Right. No, I agree. So yeah, man, no, it's been very cool and very refreshing to kind of talk to you, and I'm super excited that Pat introduced me to you, and we got to definitely get some miles in. But before we let you go, do you have any final words, any shout outs? The floor is yours, my friend.
I always have a lot to say. Not to sound, super spiritual or anything, but I have a pastor that says, where you are right now is not where you always have to be. It's not where you always have to stay, but it's up to you to get up and get going in any direction that you want. There's nothing stopping us. So if you have a long-term education goal, if you have a long-term career goal, it doesn't have to be, hey, I'm going to train for a marathon, but that's awesome if you want to do that, because you should get up and do it. But that's the attitude. It's like, just get up and make it happen. We're the lucky ones that are physically, emotionally, and mentally available to do this crazy stuff. So that's it. Yeah. So that's Pastor Allen. Shout out my coach. Shout out one of my best running buddies, Running Chip, who just kind of taught me that if you just keep showing up, that look good, feel good attitude, put in the work. I mean, he's a guy that went from, a 4+ hour marathoner to now he's consistently throwing down sub-3 marathons. It blows my mind. And people look at his journey and they're like, well, how did he do that? Well, he actually put in the work for years. I mean, he had goals that were long-term goals that he made reality, because he's at the track doing, 16-mile repeats in the freezing cold, where you're not going to get to those goals if you're not that disciplined. So that kind of stuff fires me up. I just can't say it enough, where there's a whole bunch of people in this community doing awesome things. I love to say that I'm the guy that's cheering for you. So get up and make it happen.
Awesome. And I wanted you on because I know you can inspire a lot more folks. So I'm glad I can kind of shine a light on you to get that out to my following. And if they know people who are struggling, they know they have someone to reach out to. So
absolutely. I'm always willing to chat. And that's the biggest thing. I was in the darkest corners of alcohol, hardcore drug addiction, homelessness, street prostitution, you name it, some real gritty stuff. So if I was able to pull myself out of that, then anything can happen. So no matter what you're going through, it's just a matter of taking a couple of steps in a different direction to change everything.
Awesome. We're going to end on that, Maurice. Thank you so much. I will put in your notes for everything so people can follow you, contact you. And thanks for listening, everyone. And looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the next one. Thanks, Maurice.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.